All right, nice. We started the recording. Bruno, you want to do some introductory comments, and I'll follow up with that and begin our meeting.
Nice. Okay, I'll do it first in Portuguese, then I say some words in English for everybody that's with us here. Bom, pessoal, meu bom dia aí para todos vocês. Agora aí são 10 horinhas da manhã aí no Brasil, então, como eu tenho aí uma grande parcela de colegas aí de nacionalidade aqui, eu vou começar abrindo em português, então sejam muito bem-vindos. É um grande privilégio contar com a presença aqui de vocês nesse sábado de manhã, tá? Para a gente participar desse bate-papo. É um bate-papo bastante tranquilo, realmente, para a gente agregar conhecimento, trocar ideias com uma pessoa muito importante, muito especial, que é o cara aí que foi pioneiro na identificação aí do componente de liderança, né? Perdão. Do componente de liderança para o sucesso do Lean e do Kaizen, que é o Bob Emiliani, que pegou aí, foi pioneiro nesse assunto aí a partir dos anos 90, foi treinado pela Shinjutsu, que foi a consultoria aí autorizada pelo Taiichi Ohno, teve contato com o sensei, com o Nakao-san, que trabalhou junto com o Taiichi Ohno, então um cara que entende muito aí, com muitas décadas tanto de prática em campo, na indústria, quanto também aí décadas aí no mundo acadêmico produzindo conteúdo. Então, decidimos aí nos juntar por ideia dele aí, para fazer essa sequência de 3 bate-papos, e hoje o nosso primeiro bate-papo aí vai ser uma visão geral, né, do que o Lean era em 88, do que o Lean se tornou hoje, e vamos conversar também sobre o que provavelmente vai acontecer com o Lean no futuro, certo? Nosso bate-papo vai ser principalmente em inglês, mas eu vou fazer os comentários aqui com vocês em português também, e depois as gravações, perdão, as gravações a gente vai ter a legenda aí completa em português para vocês poderem revisar, ok? So, I'd like to welcome everybody to our little talk. I was first introducing how we would work to my fellow Brazilian folks. So it's really a great pleasure to be here with you alongside with Bob, so we can talk a little bit about the present situation, the past situation, and the future situation of Lean. Uh, I'll let Bob introduce himself because he knows his history better than I do. But I just want to say that I'm a very big fan.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thanks everybody for joining us. Let me just say at the outset, we invite your participation. So raise your hand if you have a comment or question, or put a comment or question in the chat if you prefer that. As you know, this meeting is recorded. I'll post it on my YouTube channel, and Bruno will do the same, and he will have Portuguese subtitles when it's posted on on his YouTube channel. So today, let's see, cancel that. Got a notification that I need to cancel. So yes, today we're going to talk about lean in the past, lean in the present, lean in the future. And so let me begin by just talking a bit about the past. Now, in the past, lean became known as a term to all in 1988 with the publication of John Krafcik's paper in Sloan Management Review, The Triumph of the Lean Production System. And this research that was done at MIT starting in the early 1980s, called the International Motor Vehicle Program, was a study funded by the US government. It was quite a big study. It was funded with $5 million, which was a lot of money back then. And the US government wanted to understand why Japanese companies were so much more competitive than US companies. And so, of course, the MIT folks did a detailed study of essentially the production aspects, the productivity and quality and so forth. So that study and the subsequent launching of the term lean as back then, meant to be a generic term for Toyota production system. This was all a very well-intentioned effort to bring TPS to the masses. But it is, of course, a Western and a British, a Western American British interpretation of Toyota production system by the principal folks that were involved in the study, which was Jim Womack and Dan Jones. There was, of course, prior work done by people such as Richard Schoenberger, Ken Wantuck, Yasuhiro Mondon, which talked a great deal about Japanese manufacturing and even respect for humanity, respect for people, and so forth. But their works were lesser known and didn't gain the wide following that the work that the MIT folks produced. And of course, Womack and Jones were, principals in that study, but there was many, many others that were involved with that. So it woke. So the term lean and the MIT study woke people up to a wonderful new form of progressive management that has, of course, great potential to improve not just management but the leadership of businesses. And today we understand it to be applicable to any organization, not just manufacturing. So it started as lean production, and from that start, it always missed critically important aspects of Toyota production system, and because there's things that are lost in translation, and it's just something that's difficult to understand, and it takes a lot of time to really understand Toyota production system, which, as Ono said in a book that was written in Japanese in 1978 and translated to English in 1988, the Toyota production system book that he wrote. He said it's not just a production system; it's an overall management system. And this was something that people just really didn't pay much attention to until much later on. And in fact, in 2007, at the 10-year anniversary of the Lean Enterprise Institute, it was a large group of people. I was there as well. And they were solicited for ideas and advice and so forth. And everybody, agreed with the suggestion that the terminology should shift from lean production to lean management. So that's how the term lean management came about and popularized. But anyway, from the start, it always missed critically important aspects of Toyota production system. And once this hit the marketplace of ideas, managers immediately began to cherry pick the parts that they liked the most and discarded the rest. And so the things that they latched onto were just in time without understanding all of the other things that needs to happen in order for just in time to become reality. Respect for people was not, there was a lack of awareness of that, or it wasn't paid attention to, depending upon what decade we're talking about. And this resulted in what I coined the term a long time ago, 24 years ago now, fake lean, which was continuous improvement without respect for people. So, the principal interpreters of Toyota production system, which, I mean, let's face it, is the globally recognized organizations of the Lean Enterprise Institute and Lean Enterprise Academy, in my view, has always been very slow to understand and communicate the critically important aspects of the Toyota production system. And so this includes, things like Kaizen, which was important in the beginning, but fell by the wayside soon thereafter, certainly by the mid to late 1990s. And respect for people didn't become an item of conversation within the Lean Enterprise Institute. And I pick on them because they helped popularize things until 2007, in late 2000, December 2007. So, you wonder why, after 20 years, the term lean comes to us in 1988, but it isn't until 2007 that respect for people starts to become something that people begin to talk about. So, you have unusual things like that. The idea of stable employment, no layoffs due to Kaizen, just, fell into the background, wasn't discussed. The spirit of improvement, the teamwork, the energy, the spirit of improvement, the challenge to do difficult things, figure out how to increase output with no new machines, no money, no new software, no people, no more space, etc. Just that type of challenge just fell by the wayside as lean transitioned more into the world of just the tools for the manager's toolkit, and that's what it was referred to in the late 90s and early 2000s. And these days, it's become more like tools for the workers' toolkit. What also was not really recognized was the evolution in mindset and methods. It's not just use the tools, but your understanding of them evolves, understanding of the methods evolve. It changes over time. You improve those methods and tools and so forth. The idea of infinite possibilities for improvement. You have the equation 3 plus 4 equals what? Everybody knows the answer, 7. But if you take the number 7 as a goal, and you instead say, how do we get there? Then you have blank plus blank equals 7. What is the goal? So the two blanks are infinite possibilities of how to achieve that goal. And also the hunger for survival. One of the reasons why TPS was created was to compete against much larger, much better established competitors. They were vertically integrated. They started in the automobile business 30 or more years before Toyota, depending on where you start the clock for Toyota, in the late 30s or in the late 40s. And so this was a means for surviving in a tough competitive buyer's market for automobiles. So my way of looking, the other thing that happened, of course, is the business of lean became prominent very quickly, and through the business of lean and consultants and even the way businesses took in lean and how businesses understood it, it soon got reduced to lean tools. This is nobody's fault in particular. This happened in the days of scientific management, where those methods got reduced to tools, and certain tools were absorbed by companies and others were rejected. Certain principles and concepts and ideas were rejected mainly by companies. So we're reliving the past from that perspective. And people, of course, make changes to tools without even understanding them. You have 5S, 6S, 7S, 8S, 9S, 10S, 20S. It just goes on and on. Lean, unfortunately, to my view, hasn't produced any original management innovation other than of its own, other than the 5 principles of lean thinking, which are, again, it's 5 principles of lean thinking, not principles of lean management, not principles of lean production, but it's 5 principles of lean thinking. You also have a lean transformation framework that the Lean Enterprise Institute, Lean Enterprise Academy has produced. But essentially, all of this stuff has been, appropriated from Toyota. We also know that lean transformations are very rare. This was an item of great interest many years ago, that you would transform your business from classical management and batch and queue production and the old ways of leading and managing to the new way of leading and managing. And that was a very popular phrase for maybe 20 years. It's fallen away these days. There's not so much interest in that. But where the so-called lean transformation were successful, they were all led by Shingijutsu or ex-Toyota and some ex-Isuzu consultants as well. Lean transformation seems to be no longer much of a goal. The talk today is, of course, about lean process and product development, which is a renaming of 3P, the production preparation process that was created by Chihiro Nakao. So with that, to give you some background, I would like to turn it over to Bruno here to talk about where we are with lean today.
Ok. Thank you, Bob. Para os meus companheiros aí do Brasil, basicamente o que o Bob passou para a gente aqui foi que o Lean surgiu como uma interpretação, né, do sistema Toyota de produção, com base na pesquisa aí financiada pelo governo norte-americano, que foi executada por pessoas do MIT em parceria com outras universidades. E dessa pesquisa resultou aí o termo Lean Production para tentar explicar aquilo que a Toyota em especial, né, mas os japoneses no geral estavam fazendo de diferente para ter tanta produtividade a mais do que o Ocidente, em especial a América do Norte ali, Estados Unidos, tá? Aí surgiu o termo Lean Production, mas esse termo deixou várias coisas de fora, por exemplo, a questão do respeito pelas pessoas, acabou ficando de fora aí, foi só reconhecido em 2007, sendo que em 88, ali, década de 80, temos aí o termo sendo apresentado pelo livro do Taiichi Ohno, por exemplo. Depois o termo foi tentando ser evoluído aí para Lean Management, né? Gerenciamento Lean, mas seguiu deixando muitas coisas de fora aí e acabou contribuindo muito pouco, certo? I'd like to share my screen with you guys
Yes.
so I can show a few facts that I collected about Lean. Okay. So I believe you guys are already seeing my screen, okay?
Yep.
Well, I selected a few facts about what Lean has become today, based on the Brazilian universe about the subject. So I will show you guys some examples of what we have here in Brazil happening about the subject, but I believe that around the world the situation is very similar, if not the same. Okay. So in Brazil, we can say that lean is still or an adjective sometimes, and or a set of loose things that people apply to business. And one very recent quote I found on LinkedIn says the following: "It was very nice to think about how to connect lean to the quality management system, understanding how they are complementary. But if you guys go to Toyota Global website, you guys will find that Toyota started to talk about quality management systems, and they branded as TQC, not TQM as North American, but they named it as TQC, started with SQC in 49. It's something from the 50s that is happening at Toyota. But Lean professionals still believe in a necessary integration between Lean and quality management systems. Like if with Lean, this never happened. I got another fact from ASQ website, and they consider that the beginning of TQM was in the 50s when Dr. Deming taught the methods of statistical analysis to Japanese folks. So in the 50s, we already had the beginning of this thing and the integration with TPS that was taking shape. And Toyota never planned to have a TPS. They just were trying to survive, and then TPS happened as a trial and error result. And from the book, The Birth of Lean, which is a very misleading title of the book, but Fujimoto-san, a great Japanese specialist in business, he says that Toyota adopted the TQC. In the same book, he explains that TQC at Toyota was the same as the American TQM, Total Quality Management, and he says that Toyota production system is one and the same with TQC, based on the principles of the zero defects. And he is very bold to say that they are simply different names for the same basic approach. And if we start to dig a little bit about TPS a little more, you will notice that the structure is very similar, and Toyota kind of upgraded it with some details, very particular details, like just in time and other concepts. So, Lean folks and very experienced Brazilian Lean folks are still uncovering how to integrate Lean to quality management. But TPS was quality management from the beginning, from the 50s. This one is a little bit atrocious. This is the marketing, a marketing text from a very big online school of business courses here in Brazil. And they are basically saying that Toyota adopted the lean production in its lean philosophy in its production chain in the 50s and forward. Yeah. And they dared to say that it was needed to have qualified Lean Six Sigma professionals inside Toyota to lead this transformation. These folks charges $3,000 in Brazilian real, $3,000 to teach you Lean Six Sigma.
The US
But
dollars, three
US
grand.
dollars,
Yeah.
no.
Oh,
500, around
okay.
500, a little bit more. But we have a problem with this statement. Lean was created in 88. Toyota started to work at eliminating waste uh, uh, in 30s, but with a stronger approach in the 50s. Lean Six Sigma was created in the 2000s, basically. So Toyota couldn't even dream about this, couldn't even dream about a belt system. And they definitely wouldn't have some qualified Lean Six Sigma professionals. Taiichi Ono would never care about that. And Toyota obviously created Toyota Production System, not Lean. Lean's American creation. We have also very good examples of how they chopped Toyota Production System in very small pieces. So one approach that is very popular and people likes very much when they see this on LinkedIn is 5S, Lean, Kaizen, and other stuff, chopped it in little pieces and as steps before getting to Six Sigma. So a very famous and big online course school in Brazil teaches that first you should do 5S, then you go to Kaizen, then you can do Lean, so you can follow with Six Sigma and design for Six Sigma. So you gotta do step by step. So you can do single minute exchange of die if you are not very good at 5S. Kaizen is something apart from 5S, which is very, very weird. It's a very, very Cartesian view of the things, and the sequence here is I can believe some folks still sell things based on that. And from quality folks in general, sometimes people share knowledge in the network. They also see Lean and Kaizen as an example here, Lean and Kaizen as individual improvement methods. As Kaizen, we can say that is basically the seed, the origin, the umbrella of everything we see at TPS. And they split in various things, including PDCA, Six Sigma, total quality management that we already saw a few minutes before, that is basically the same as TPS. And here he's apart from Kaizen and from Lean. And Ono-san made it very clear in, let me see,
Yep.
88.
Mm-hmm.
88.
And that
Companies,
would have been 78 in Japanese. Yeah.
Yes, 78 in Japanese edition. Companies make a big mistake in implementing the Toyota production system, thinking that's just a production method. Keep this in mind. The next slide, we'll talk about something related to that. The Toyota production system won't work unless it's used as an overall management system. The belief that only a production method is fundamentally wrong. That's exactly what folks are doing here, but in a way worse approach. And at last, talking a little bit about Lean Institute, recently I saw this workshop. It's a workshop about fundamentals of strategic planning, Lean and Agile. But there's something weird here. Agile is inspired by Toyota, as we can see in Scrum. Scrum folks, Jeff says very clearly that he's inspired himself with much of Toyota practice, especially about Scrum. And we can say about Sprint, a very, very popular concept in Agile. But Sprint is nothing more than a Jishuken event or the famous Kaizen events from the Americans with another name. We have a target, we have a limit time frame, a very short time frame, and we are trying to create a faster cycle of delivery of an improvement, or in the case of a sprint, a functionality or a part of a project. And I digged into the program of this workshop, and I found that Lean Institute is still calling Lean a methodology, and Ono made it clear that is not a method or a set of methods, a methodology or production method, but a management system, something that you do overall at your business. And it raised me a few more questions. First, Lean is a methodology. If Toyota production system was a management system, use Lean to teach balances scorecard to Agile. Is this really progress? Balances, BSC is a very, very old thing, and we need to be careful to do a very good integration of it with Lean principles or Toyota production system principles. And it's kind of weird trying to integrate it OKR with Hoshin, since OKR is inspired by Hoshin. So something that is inspired that is not essentially the complete idea of Hoshin being integrated again. Putting both together is kind of weird. So it seems that Lean is completely lost, not just by us who are not producing Lean itself, but receiving Lean from the official sources. But the official sources are very, very lost too, sadly.
This is Lean has evolved into a grand state of confusion. This is clearly regressive, and if it's a joke, really. If it wasn't real, you'd think this is all a joke. You can see that's just tremendous misunderstandings, and of course, it's hard to get the details to understand TPS correctly. It's difficult. You have to do a lot of work. It's research and so on, experience and hands-on stuff, all of that. But what you see here is really the business of Lean taking over and just adding whatever seems to be popular to gain an audience to sell training courses. And this is partly what makes Lean popular, because it can be anything that anybody wants it to be. And that's the situation that we have today, for better or worse. You see instead of understanding in Kaizen, for example, that you do many things at once, such as 5S and setup reduction, you're doing all of these things together. The people who sell Lean have split these things apart into different pieces. So it's a 5S training course, it's a Kaizen training course, it's a setup reduction training course. And this is all just to monetize Lean. And I question, is this respect for people? It doesn't seem like it to me. It seems like a lot of disrespect for people. The other thing too to say about the MIT study back in the 80s, Ono's books in Japanese were, I think they had Japanese copyright dates. TPS book was 1978. Workplace Management was 1982, I think. And Just in Time for Today and Tomorrow was, I think, 1984 in the Japanese copyright. Now, the MIT study had Japanese language people as part of the study. Takahiro Fujimoto was one of them. So I don't know if he read those books that were published in Japanese by Ono, where he said these things. It's not just a production system, it's more than that. It's a management system and so forth. But that might have changed the understanding of what was later presented to the world as Lean down the road. I mean, this is a really sad state of affairs of what's happening. And it's how do you correct the bad information, the misleading information, the disinformation that we have now? It's out of control, I think Lean has, helped some organizations improve in meaningful ways. But in my firsthand engagement with companies, I don't see much of that. What I see is just today Lean tools for workers, not even for the manager's toolkit anymore. And it's been absorbed long ago, absorbed into classical management. So there's virtually no Lean transformation. It's just tools for solving problems within the world of classical management, no just in time. Lean is sitting on its ass, waiting for the next Toyota innovation to popularize, to come out so they can popularize it. and sell it. I don't know when that will be. Maybe Toyota's not so interested in sharing it, you know? Maybe Toyota's a little bit tired of being maybe exploited, you know? Um, but we'll see.
The sad thing is that the misuse of lean, especially without the respect for people component, uh, I'm kind of structuring my research project to submit to try to be approved in the process of my master's degree, and I'm finding some articles that is relating Toyotism, and Toyotism used as a very pejorative term, with modern slavery,
Hmm.
because of the misuse, because respect for people stayed away, stayed ignored for so long. So it's very sad to see something that is completely designed upon respect for people. We can see respect for people in every component of the system. For example, takt time makes the work visible, so you can see if you are late, if you are too way too forward in the schedule, so you can be autonomously do the management of your workplace. And folks are relating it to slavery, because we use it and applied without the fundamental component that is respect for people. So this is very sad, very, very sad.
It is. And if I can give you a little background, so my first Kaizens that I were participated in that were led by Shingijutsu was the summer of 1994. And when you participate in Kaizen, you start to learn about TPS. But what is perhaps even more important than that is at the end of each Kaizen, at 6, 7 p.m., you go out to dinner with the senseis. If you're lucky enough to go to dinner with the senseis, that's where you learn about the Toyota way. They didn't call it that back then. Because at dinner, in the more casual environment and so forth, and you ask questions of the sensei and the interpreter explains different details and so forth. And that's where you learn about things like respect for people. And that's where you learn. I mean, it was clear to me back then, and I ended up writing a paper in 1998 about that was titled Lean Behaviors about Respect for People and so forth. Um, that's where you learn what's called the tacit knowledge. You know what the word the tacit? I don't know, Bruno, that's in Brazilian, but it's the sort of hidden knowledge. And so I took every opportunity I could to go out to dinner, and plus we always went to a good Japanese restaurant, so the food was fantastic. But more important than all of that, was hearing from them explain the background and the reasoning for TPS and so forth, and how people and the engagement of people and their ideas and creativity and innovation and the spirit of Kaizen and so forth. And that's something I've tried to bring out in my books. But it just is something that has gotten lost in all of this, and so people just focused on the tools. Part of the problem, and the reason why that people focus on the tools, is because that's where the marketplace is. If you are customer first, and the customer says, "I want tools," then somebody's going to provide them. If not you or me, then somebody else will. There will always be a trainer, a consultant, or somebody who will do that. And so this is not anybody's fault, but you can see the mess that has been created by all of this. It's just a very sad situation that we've come to. And
It's a very
yeah.
It's kind of a system issue. If you stop to think about, for example, MBA programs, they still teaches classical management.
Yeah.
And we are shaping CEOs in classical management.
Mm-hmm.
And the market will continue to operate in classical management. So we need to dig the root cause a little bit, dig a little bit deeper to find the real root cause for all this. This is a systemic problem.
Yeah, and AI is being trained as a helper to CEOs in classical management. I want to share with you a couple of slides here. Let's see here. Let me get it started. Just to give you some a little bit more history here. I think you can see it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So classical management got started a long time ago. Things like blaming people, that goes back 5,000 or more years, and when the engineer and the architect built a lousy pyramid, of course, the pharaoh is going to blame, the engineer and the architect for building a lousy pyramid and so forth. So this stuff has ancient origins, and it's rooted in preconception. And in the history of things, you have God, and then you have the divine king, and anointed by God as being the ruler and so forth. And so this then begins a process where everything is rooted in preconceptions, and you do what the boss says, and so forth. The boss is the smartest person and all of that. But where does progressive management come from? So if you look at the bottom, the oldest engineering is military engineering, then comes civil engineering, then comes in the 1700s mechanical engineering. And out of mechanical engineering comes it was called industrial management in the early days, or industrial administration, even a little bit first, then industrial management. And then comes industrial engineering. And from industrial management and industrial engineering, those ideas come to Toyota. I started in 1950 here, but you can start it in more like 1930s, whatever. But post-World War II period, they take these ideas and improve upon them tremendously, and then contribute their own way of thinking and new ideas to create a Toyota management system. And of course, this is rooted in sensory perceptions. That means you get your hands dirty, you experiment, you try it out, you try things out to see what happens, and so on. And this is your senses: touch, feel, smell, etc. Your various senses to create this management system based on reality, not the myths associated with preconceptions. And from the Toyota management system, we have this derivative Western interpretation called lean management. And these two things are going, really, the image should change to show some kind of different directions, probably opposite directions based upon what Bruno showed. Because with Toyota, there's a consistency and a consistent way of thinking. There is also an evaluation of new tools and methods. Are they consistent with other Toyota methods? Would they cause confusion? Would they contradict Toyota methods? Do it cause people to do the wrong things? Is it consistent with the Toyota way? Does it challenge people? Or is it just some more PowerPoint or some more calculation on paper? And if it's that, forget it, not interested. So really, lean and Toyota management system are going in opposite directions these days. And lean is more in the direction related to preconceptions, which is you need a tool. You got a problem, you need a tool. Got a problem, you need a tool. And that's the way you operate in business. You got a problem, you need a tool. Let's look also at do you have any questions about that? I mean, this is a huge difference in thinking in how to lead and manage organizations. Classical management has ancient origins. It has changed over time, but it's still rooted in those ancient origins and preconceptions versus the sensory preconceptions, the understanding of reality, what's the real situation. I'll give you an example. Boeing and their 737 and those crashes. When the engineers go to senior management and say there's a problem with the software, there's a problem with something else, this and that, what does management say? You have to stay on budget, you have to be on schedule, right? Because the preconception is the budget and schedule is the most important thing. The facts that are the sensory stuff, the software is no good, there's a problem on the assembly line, etc. Forget about that. Not important. So this is a big problem. What you know from your awareness of Toyota, there's a problem on the assembly floor or somewhere in the factory. What happens? The manager comes to see it, right? And they may facilitate in real time some problem solving. Ask why, right? And do it in a respectful way. Don't blame people for the problem. So this is a huge, huge different way of thinking about things. One other slide here. So in 1983, Yasuhiro Mandan, who is Japanese and obviously then speaks Japanese, he's a professor, and he is interacting with Taiichi Ohno to write the book Toyota Production System that was published in 1983. And this was another book that was available to the MIT researchers. And in the introduction, this is on page 2, something like that. He says, although cost reduction is the system's most important goal, it must, why is that? Why is that the system's most important goal? Because you're in a competitive environment. You know, if it was a non-competitive seller's market, you wouldn't even bother with TPS. Forget it, not a waste of time. But if you're in a competitive buyer's market, cost reduction is always an important thing. And Toyota was playing catch up to the bigger competitors who had scale, mass production, etc. So cost reduction is the most important goal. But you have to achieve other sub goals in order to achieve cost reduction. And that's quantity control. So the system has to adapt to fluctuations in demand of number and type of item you're producing. Quality assurance to assure that each process will supply only good units to the subsequent process. And of course, we know in the real world this is difficult to do, and Toyota has recalls and there's problem with parts and so forth. And then respect for humanity, which must be cultivated while the system utilizes human resources to obtain the cost objective. And those human resources are people thinking of ideas to reduce costs. And the Toyota management is saying, you're not going to get more money to solve this problem. You're not going to get more equipment. You're not going to get more people, and so on. So they're going to constrain the Kaizen teams and the individual people in a way that forces them to think and be creative to solve the problem without needing the kinds of things that their competition will need or do. Because the competition of Toyota will say, the manager will say, yeah, okay, here's more money. Okay, yeah, here's more equipment. Okay, yeah, here's more people. Just make the problem go away. And so this is the cultivating of the human resources. And this is why Toyota produces, same number of cars as Volkswagen will have number of people, et cetera, et cetera. Then he goes on to say, these three goals cannot exist independently or be achieved independently without influencing the other or the primary goal of cost reduction. It is a special feature of the Toyota production system that the primary goal cannot be achieved without realizing the sub-goals and vice versa. All goals are output of the same system. Productivity is the ultimate purpose and guiding concept. The Toyota production system strives to realize each of the goals for which it has been designed. So, and the words here are important. Productivity is the ultimate purpose and guiding concept. And doing it in a way that respects humanity. So it's not improve productivity and lay people off. It's improve productivity and grow the business and continue to cultivate the human resources. So when you talk to the senseis like Chiro Nakao, they'll tell you that, you're doing all of these things to improve productivity, but along the way, you improve quality and you improve, develop the creativity and so on of people. So where did this show up in Lean? Didn't really show up in the early days. This is really important stuff here. And then in the book, Mandan goes through more details. If you're unfamiliar with the book, you can find it used. I recommend you get it. I think I have just one more slide to show you here. I showed this on LinkedIn a couple, I guess it was last year. The principles of lean thinking are on the left-hand side. This is quoting directly from page 10 of the book Lean Thinking from 1996. Precisely specify value by specific product, identify the value stream for each product, make value flow without interruption, let the customer pull value from the producer, and pursue perfection. I look at this in a couple of ways. Number one is, in my Kaizen TPS training with Shingijutsu, they're like, don't think about value. What is value? How do you know it? You don't know it. You shouldn't do this work of Kaizen with that in mind. You should focus on eliminating waste, unevenness, and unreasonableness. I think this is, to me, is outdated principles of lean thinking. And if we were to continue with the name lean and so forth, the principles should reflect new thinking, because here we are, more than 25 years later. We need to restate this as mutual respect and trust between management and employees. Respect your external stakeholders, your suppliers, your customers, your investors, your community. Respect the planet. Cooperation between labor and management. Fact-based thinking and decision-making. Daily, not just regular problem solving. Who cares? That's not of importance or of value these days. It's creative problem solving by rapid cycle trial and error. Sensible low-cost automation where it is needed. Mutually beneficial outcomes among the stakeholders. No layoffs due to process improvement. There's ongoing development of human resources. Above average wages and benefits, and evolution in mindset and methods. This, of course, is not perfect. Maybe even, it's just to contrast then to now, but also to emphasize. Notice how on the left-hand side, it really doesn't talk about trust and respect and productivity. The framing of lean thinking is just not what you would have expected had the research been more thorough. Okay, so let me stop the share there. And so for what we have discussed so far, you have questions, comments, anything in the chat here? Not much. Anybody want to speak up and say anything?
Bob,
Please.
later on, they try to rebrand the lean thinking to, if I'm not mistaken, purpose, people, and processes.
Yeah,
right?
People, purpose, and process. That's correct.
Yes, something
and
like
that started to happen maybe around 2007, 8, I think. I don't recall exactly. But what I said earlier, they've always been very slow to recognize or come forward with this new information. Now, maybe they always had this information and they start to dribble it out, over time to suit a business purpose. I don't know. But to me, it's astonishing that, again, Ono's books were in Japanese. There were Japanese language researchers who could have translated and contribute to it. There is, other Manden's book, Schonenberger's, Wantuck. Ken Wantuck specifically had several pages in his book about, it was a book about just in time, but there was more to it than that, and specifically about respect for people. This all seems to have been ignored. And from a research perspective, and I've spent basically a lifetime doing research. I started doing research in, the age of 20 with other projects, but serious research at the age of 20, 19 or 20.
There's a book from Womack. I can't remember the name in English, but in the second edition, I believe, there is an additional chapter where Womack says that when they were looking for a term to coin to present lean as a research product or something like that, they knew about other elements like the A3 reports and other stuff more related to overall management of the system, but yet they deliberately decided to go with lean production. but he said they knew that they shouldn't have used the word production because, in fact, it was a management thing. But this book is from the 2000s, and this extra chapter is in the second edition, so it's uh, uh, a very late admission of a deliberate choice.
Yeah, I mean it's just astonishing. And if you have followed me on LinkedIn and my other work, you can see I'm very rapid at trying to produce the new material as it comes to me and so forth. And not wait until I have a saleable package and so on. And it's just like get it out there. You learn something new, share it. And this is one of the things you learn from Shingijutsu and Kaizen. You learn something new, share it, help others learn, help others improve as fast as you can.
Indeed.
Don't wait. So, other people have questions or comments? All right. What? Oh, yes. Somebody have a question or comment?
Sorry, I could ask a question. Sergio speaking here.
Hmm.
Right. So, well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. One thing that comes to my attention, not only in this presentation, but also in your posts on LinkedIn, you talk a lot about leadership. But as an engineer, when you are at the university, this is a topic that is not well covered.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel that as engineers, we are more focused on something that's more time, like you said, parameters like takt time, studying flow, these type of things, but not the human side, especially because it's not part of our, let's say, background.
Yes.
So how do you see that? I mean, how to incorporate this knowledge to people that are more, they tend to be looking at numbers or flow or this type of thing? And do we need to bring more psychologists or more people from other areas to this arena to help us to understand how to be better leaders?
Yeah. So you remember the chart I showed that the evolution of progressive management? This was all engineering, and starting with in early 1900s with science, late 1800s, early 1900s. The engineers had ideas for improvement. They would tell the workers, do this, do my idea, make it happen. And of course, the workers resent it, And so pretty soon, the engineers figure out that you have to go about changing things and improving things in a different way when you're working with other people. And so the engineers started to figure out that they had to lead differently. And they would, and in scientific management, when they would consult with companies, they would impress upon leaders that you have to change how you lead. Frederick Taylor is famous for saying 9/10 of the problem is getting management to do their fair share, to do that, to change how they lead. Only 10% was, getting the workers to join in. And so this problem has always existed. And it is the engineering realm who has recognized the need for a different leadership. And Toyota, these people who created TPS and who led that effort were all technically trained people. Ono was a technical high school graduate, kind of a hands-on trial and error engineer like Henry Ford was. And then some of the other people were, like Fujio Cho. He graduated from law school, but he was Ono's star disciple who became president of Toyota, and so these people had diverse backgrounds, but they also had technical and engineering backgrounds, many of them, most of them. So the real problem is not the engineers lacking this knowledge, it's everyone else who is trained in the wrong way of thinking through this classical management that you lead based upon preconceptions. I'm your boss, you listen to me. Most bosses don't want to hear the crap coming from people below them. Just tell me there's no problems, right? Because problems are bad. That's a preconception. So don't tell me the problem. And then if you do have a problem, come to me with a solution. This is a preconception. I'm the boss. Come to me with the solution for me to approve, for you to do it. And this is what everybody hates. But they don't hate it enough to rebel. They don't do it. I got a job, I got a house, I got a wife, I got a car, I got this, that, the other. I need an income. What happens if I rebel?
Exactly. I think that sometimes they don't have the power to rebel, and then they are afraid to get fired or to get,
Yeah.
to be made redundant. Or I don't know if you create this type of rebellion inside the company. So it all comes to power, in your view, like leaders keeping the power, not being able to transfer these powers to the mid managers or operatives on site.
Yeah. I would say that engineers in the world of progressive management have a better understanding of leadership and economics and business, not in the sense of the financial aspects. By that I mean going to the market to sell debt, stock offerings, certain financial aspects we don't understand. Sort of the financial engineering stuff we don't understand. But other stuff, we have a much clearer view of the customer and so forth, and the ideas and methods to make improvements and so on. But we struggle. Here we are 38 years after Lean, 50 something years after TPS, because this was more or less fully formed. They produced a TPS manual in 1973 for internal Toyota use. Here we are 100 years, more of 130, 40 years after scientific management, depending on where you start the timeline. But we're still struggling, so.
I think things are kind of.
Let me just say one more quickly. Sergio, I agree with you, though. In the engineering curriculum, they don't talk about leadership. But the other thing is, in engineering curriculum, would anybody really understand it at that point if you're an undergraduate?
Yeah.
I think the context is not there for them to understand. They have to graduate, start working in a company, and realize, like my children did, why is everything so messed up here in this company? Why is leadership so stupid? And I had to spend a year on and off explaining to them why there is this ridiculous way of running companies, why it's a ridiculous way of leading. Bruno, you were going to say something.
I believe it's kind of a product of its time, because in the past we clearly see that folks were more learned more about different things. So you have a guy that he's a physician, he's an engineer. So people were more complete. Were more the learning approach was more systemic. So you're a physicist, you are an engineer, and you also a philosopher, a poet. You understand of a variety of subjects. And then with the division of labor, the evolution of society, we started to become very Cartesian. So this is your club, this is my club. I'm an engineer, you are a psychologist, I'm human resource, you are human resources, I'm technical aspect. And in university, in general, we see all the disciplines now, all the courses in a very segregated way. And we never have a discipline that shows us how to integrate all these things. Why all these things are not isolated components that can do whatever they want, and the result will be the same. We simply don't have a project to integrate everything. Okay, human resources together with engineering and with R&D and marketing and sales. And we know, for example, that the cost of a product is very, very much influenced by the project phase, by the design. There's a lot of cost of something that you can change after the design. And we still see all those subjects as separated stuff.
Yeah, think of this. I mean, because people say, well, we need more change management, we need more psychology, we need more organizational behavior, organizational development. The engineer is very much cause and effect focused, right? And the engineer says, I got a new idea. Hey, you workers, you go do this. Do my idea. And it may take a while, but the engineer eventually is going to say, these workers really don't like me, and this isn't working out. And so I have to, find a different way to work with the workers to make a change happen. And so scientific management benefited from one person injecting a little bit of psychology, which was Lillian Gilbreth with her book Psychology of Management, which in the early days, Toyota people, to my understanding, were very much aware of Frank and Lillian Gilbreth's work, but Lillian Gilbreth's work, The Psychology of Management. But this is very basic. If you read The Psychology of Management, it's very basic kind of cause and effect thinking of if you do this, here's how people react, here's what happens. But recognize that both scientific management and Toyota production system were both developed with very rudimentary application of psychology. There was no change management going on. There was no emotional intelligence. There was no organizational. They weren't looking at Western. To the best of my knowledge, they were not looking at Western literature to figure out how, the psychology to create TPS. And in fact, the book Shingijutsu Kaizen was written but not published. I received the manuscript after kind of begging for it from Shingijutsu, so let me have a look at it. This is back in 2014. They finally gave it to me reluctantly. I looked at it, I read it. I spent a week editing it, getting rid of 60 pages of stuff, writing stuff in it, bridging different ideas and so forth, and writing it in the way that I learned Kaizen from Shingijutsu. And when I got rid of all the Western psychology, organizational development, organizational behavior stuff, and gave it back to them to read, they're like, okay, this is something that, should be published. Because they don't think that way. And you see on LinkedIn everywhere, help me out, Bruno, emotional intelligence, I don't know. There's all this
neuroscience. Neuroscience is very
there's all this shit out there on the psychology of all this stuff, and just I shouldn't name names after I said shit, but you see it.
By the way,
yeah.
By the way, there is a paper that's showing that when you put neuroscience before something, people tend to give more credibility. Is a fallacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's so much crap out there. Anyway, so this stuff was developed with just a basic rudimentary cause and effect way of understanding. You train workers, they appreciate being trained so that they can do a better job. They do a better job. Don't blame people for a mistake. Basic stuff. So I would say psychology is important on a rudimentary, a fundamental level. But all this stuff you see on LinkedIn and elsewhere that just goes so far beyond this, what has it really done in the world? And I have been when I worked at the company, I have been the recipient of these kinds of trainings. And I did get some benefit out of it the first time and so forth. But anyway, after that, it was not much benefit. So it's important to remember this stuff was created without, what's the word? Without a lot of, extra thinking of psychology, just basic thinking. And it's remarkable, right? It's just remarkable what was created. So if you don't know Lillian Gilbreth's book, The Psychology of Management, you should read it. It's available on Google Books. You can download it for free. You can also, there's another book. And by the way, her husband, Frank Gilbreth, wasn't a writer, so the book's under his name, she wrote. And but there's another good book by Frank Gilbreth, written by Lillian. It's another one. It's I forgot the name, but it'll have scientific management in the title. Maybe it's Principles of Scientific Management. That's very much worth reading. These are wonderful histories. You'll see the parallels to modern progressive management, TPS mainly, and some lean stuff, but just amazing work that these people that Toyota built on and added to that great work. Let's talk for a few minutes, I guess, about the future. I said earlier that I think the lean people are sitting on their butts waiting for Toyota to come up with something new so they can sell that and make it popular. So I think that's the future, is another tool, another method, another, like Bruno showed, just the diagrams with these things 1 through 5, or the tree with the different pieces to it or something. Anybody have thoughts on where this goes?
Maybe throwing it at the wall and see what it sticks. Grabbing a
Yeah.
little bit of AI, RPA, and let's see what folks likes better to keep postponing what they
Yeah.
really should be doing.
Bruno, what you showed from Brazil, the Brazil lean company there, is very interesting to me because the Brazil lean company and the other ones like it, wherever they are in Poland and elsewhere, these are basically franchises, from the main parent in the US. So these are franchises. And so to get the franchise, you have to commit to buying a certain number of training materials, from the mothership. And you have to commit, you have to sign a contract that says, 25% of our revenue, I'm picking a number, may not be that, could be higher, could be lower. 25% of your revenue goes to the mothership, right? That's the business deal to make this stuff happen. But what I find interesting is these satellite business units of the mothership are catering to the local market. Because, for example, in the US, I don't see what I see in Brazil there, what you showed. I don't see this crazy conglomeration. It's crazy in its own way in the US version, but it's not crazy in the Brazilian way. The Polish way, the German way, whatever, they're all a little bit different. But it shows you they're catering to the local market and what they think will sell. And so they don't think TPS will sell, is the point, by whatever name you call it. Thinking management system, Toyota management system, Toyota production system. They don't think it'll sell. They think all this other stuff will sell. Plus, there's no coherency from the mothership to say, that's bullshit. You shouldn't be, like what Bruno showed, should say, that's bullshit. Don't do that. They're not saying that. As long as you can buy X dollars worth of training material and send back X dollars per month, per quarter to the mothership, it's good. So it doesn't matter what you sell. It could be crap. But as long as you have a business. So where is customer focus? If you sell crap, where is respect for people? Respect for people is not in the business of lean. Doesn't exist. In your company, if you have lean or TPS or whatever, and you have respect, that's where it exists, right? In your company and what you do. It is not in the selling of lean. Doesn't exist. I think lean is just going to become, or has become, and will continue to be in the future. Its own thing. Drifting further away from, further away from TPS and the Toyota way. It's like a genetic mutation. It's the I don't know what the example is, but the thing has turned into something else.
Clearly something else.
Yeah.
Something else. And sometimes they talk with Toyota folks and offer them positions inside the satellite companies and the mother company. So it could give a little bit more of brand to the thing. But right now they are not doing that with so much intensity as we saw in the past. Maybe they are kind of trying to go their own way, at least in some of the satellites. I don't know if in the mothership they are kind of brave enough to separate from.
Well, they're
from
not. And Jim Womack gave a recent talk. I did a blog post on this, a recent talk, basically saying that, in the early work, meaning the machine that changed the world and lean thinking, we fully described Toyota's management system from new product development to supplier stuff. And they were right. They did. Maybe not in the detail that you or I would like, but they did cover more than just production. And he said that, and he's frustrated in this talk that, people are not doing that. And of course, what's amazing is that he's the founder and the senior advisor to the Lean Enterprise Institute, but apparently is unable to influence the business of Lean to say you should be, selling what we wrote about as an integrated system of management. And I just found this really odd, which is why I did a blog post on it to, the work covered the right things, but the selling of Lean is different. And I'd
Maybe
be
there's some
frustrated too if
politics.
I would be frustrated too if I was in Jim's shoes. Yeah, there's probably politics and there's probably arguments about, well, that's not going to sell, or we tried it and it didn't sell. And so, Kaizen fell off the map for 15 years because they couldn't sell classroom-based Kaizen because they didn't know how to facilitate Kaizen on the Gemba. So they could only sell classroom Kaizen, and that didn't sell. So
I really remember about some criticisms from Lean Enterprise folks about the Shinjutsu Kaizen workshops. And I believe it's from your book, Critique of Lean, I believe. They said something that they didn't want it to go that way because the approach was sometimes very very rough sometimes, and folks need something more sophisticated or something like that, more integrated, but they went completely the other way, they target the right stuff maybe, but with the wrong approach.
Sometimes you have to yell at people. and that's still part of the Shingijutsu repertoire, but these are everybody who's been scolded by Mr. Nakao and others will tell you it's been beneficial to them. The fact of the matter is they couldn't compete with Shingijutsu in terms of Genba Kaizen, so that's there's a couple of comments here in the French book club. The French is a book club. I guess the French satellite unit is a book club and an engagement pod. Whatever. Everybody's part of these satellite units is doing their own thing. Yeah, there's a next question on chat. I guess all the psychology-related topics you mentioned can be summarized in the respect for people, TPS fundamental. Yeah, I suppose so. I'm not sure what Venom and Spider-Man means. What do you think about systems like world-class management or ACE from UTC? So world-class management was just basically another way of characterizing Japanese management system. And this phrase comes from the 90s. I believe it was the early, yes, it would have been the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s. I'm not sure. That's okay. Where I first learned Kaizen, we had the world-class manufacturing conference room. It was named that. And in there was the book and other books titled World-Class Manufacturing. There was the book by Suzaki and others. ACE. So I can tell you about ACE because I worked at Pratt & Whitney and at UTC Corporate. So when we engaged Shingijutsu back in 1992, Shingijutsu shared with us their Kaizen manual. And it got reformulated into, the Pratt & Whitney Kaizen manual, which described described Kaizen and the various methods like, 5S and set of production, product quantity analysis, Yamazumi charts, etc. And three guys in the quality department, there's a chapter of this about this in the book, Lean is Not Mean, that describes what happened. Three quality guys somehow took it upon themselves to create a derivative version of the Shingijutsu manual that consisted of what were called ACE tools. We can talk about that next time. I'll make a note here. ACE tools. ACE stood for Achieving Competitive Excellence. And so it was a subset of the Kaizen, various Kaizen methods and tools. I have to go back and read the chapter to recall why, if there was a rationale on why they did that. But it was typical of what happens in a company. You know, Shingijutsu comes in, teaches you how to do stuff, and then other departments look at that. Probably didn't, those guys, I don't know if they ever participated in Kaizen, but let's say they didn't. Then they take the documentation and they translate it for their use to share with other people in the quality organization. And then you get this reduced version that ends up being just tools for the toolkit. And there was a lot of competition, by the way, about who introduced ACE, because there was Pratt Canada and Pratt US. And there's a peer-reviewed academic paper where Pratt Canada has taken a bunch of credit for this and so on when it originated in Pratt US, but whatever, who cares? So, you know, ACE, what did it do? Well, let's just say overall, not much. I mean, what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to achieve flow, right? Continuous flow. Is ACE tools going to get you there? No. Makwan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Let me start with thank you for this amazing presentation, both you and Bruno. Thank you so much. So I have a question actually. You mentioned that the lean began with respect for people, like in 2006 or 7. I don't remember what you said, but have you noticed any effects from that focus up until now, or is it the same?
I think the question is better put to everybody else. I mean, I haven't noticed it. It's still all about tools and, you know, just, you know, when there's a layoff, who's the first people to get rid of is the lean office and so on. So, you know, it's not providing the value that the leaders expect. It might be, but the leaders are somehow not seeing it or don't believe it's true or who knows what. I don't know. Other people here, do you see it? Do you see respect for people operative in your businesses? I mean, you know, when you're a leader, you have certain status rights and privileges, and one of those status rights and privileges is to blame people for problems, to get rid of people that you don't like, etc. So, you know, in classical management, respect for people is just doesn't exist. I mean, the leaders don't have respect for themselves. Behind the scenes, they're like, oh, so and so is really a jerk, and you know, so and so stabbing my back, and so forth, and you know, so it doesn't operate under a preconception of respect for people. It operates under preconception of, you know, watch your ass. You're going to get killed by somebody.
Totally right. Thank you.
Yeah. Other comments or questions? Well, we don't have to spend an hour and a half just because we got an hour and a half. Let me just, I guess, summarize or, you know, thank everybody for attending today and taking time out of your Saturday. I hope it's been informative. Maybe you learned something. Maybe it changes a little bit your way of thinking about something for the better. What else? I hope to see you in the next 2 meetings and, you know, have an enjoyable weekend. And Bruno, closing comments from you?
I believe we did very well. We have some improvement points like we talked about yesterday, and I'm very happy of how much we are learning from sharing these things with you guys. There's a lot of things that comes to our minds, ideas, and I believe we will use very much of what we talked about today for the next meetings, incorporating pretty much the feedback that you guys will give us and has given us throughout the meeting. So I'm very, very, very happy to be part of it, and I thank you guys very much for spending the beginning of your Saturdays maybe with us to talk about something we indeed love.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.